Welcome back, everybody. So I wanted to put a video out for you guys. I'm here on business again, so I have a little bit of free time to make one for you guys. So one of our members, one of our community members, one of our longtime subscribers left me a comment, and I told this person that I would do a video on it. It's a really good question, and I'm going to give you guys my honest advice on this. Again, not very mainstream, but I think we need to look at this with some nuance. And I know I'm not the only person that feels this way when it comes to water storage. And so let's go ahead and put their comment up so we can take a look at it together, and then we'll start to answer it. So that's a great question, right? I'm under no illusion. I know most of you guys that are subscribed to us and watch my videos, you guys don't necessarily live in the country, or in my case, the frontier, right? Obviously, I live a lot more rustic than 99.9% of people, and that's not lost on me. But I do think that it's important to mention when we're talking about water storage, um, unless it can be articulated using science, math. I don't believe you can have long-term water storage just by storing enough water, unless you had like a halo, a nuclear missile silo, you know, filled with water. There's no way you're going to have long-term water storage in suburbia. So I think that's very important to mention. I know that's going to piss a lot of people off, but there's a lot of people out there that think that, well, I have a swimming pool and a couple IBC totes, so I have all the water I need. No, not exactly. But I do realize that there are people, again, that live more in suburbia. So what I really want to, when it comes to advice, I really just want to set the precedence that before you purchase anything, before you even think about purchasing anything, before you go out and spend your money, waste your money, you really got to come up with a plan. What is the plan? Okay. I think a month worth of water storage is doable. It's possible. You can definitely do it. It's going to take a lot of work. It's going to take a lot of resources, but you can do it. But then after that, then what? So I think that's important, and I think it's important that we talk about a month, and I think a month is a good number because realistically, 99.9% of all water problems, should you have them, will be remedied within a couple days max, maybe a week tops, based upon what I've seen in real life, based on my training experience. You don't typically see outages longer than that. It's possible. We've seen rare instances nationwide. Some places that have been affected by some natural disasters, we've seen more long term, but those people that were affected were people like me that were, already in the country, in the rustic frontier, and it's not really applicable because I have water no matter what, right? So I think it's important to really make that consideration. So while I don't believe in long-term water storage because I don't think it's possible to attain, I also see this from a realistic standpoint that realistically speaking, water availability is going to be there within a few days. So really get a game plan on what it is that you're trying to do. Be realistic. Okay. With that being said, you've heard me talk about it before. You can't simply think that you can take water from any source, whether it be, IBC totes, a swimming pool, a pond, a river, a lake, and just shove that water through your pipes. It's not going to work that way. So you're really going to have to take some infrastructure considerations. And so I highly recommend you look at that first before you even consider getting a swimming pool full of water or a bunch of IBC totes. I want you to think of the infrastructure. And infrastructure doesn't have to be anything large, right? I think when it comes to water storage, most realistically, what I have used in real life and what I use even to this day, 5-gallon buckets. Have 5-gallon buckets available because I can take a very comfortable warm shower with a 5-gallon bucket. Me and my wife both can. Fill it up with 3.5 gallons of warm water. Put a submersible shower head pump in there. Mine's charged via USB. You can hang it up in the shower. Again, put the submersible and in the bucket of water, and you can take a nice warm shower at very comfortable PSI. Done that numerous times. So something as simple as 4 or 5 gallon buckets with a submersible pump, it's a great start, because at least you can take a shower, and that's important because when it comes to your health, if you think you're just going to let your hygiene go, that can be detrimental to your health. Another thing to think about: 5 gallon buckets are really good for dishes, washing clothes, that kind of thing. So I highly consider looking at that. I mean, that is essentially infrastructure, and we see this we see this in third world countries. It's very common to use buckets for cleaning and water needs. Okay, so when we are talking about where you're going to store this stuff, right? I think IBC totes are great. I have a video on it. I got mine for pennies on the dollar through my local municipal water treatment plant. They're great. You can store a lot of water in there. Not only can you store a lot of water, but they are meant for storing water, and you can easily make those adaptable to your everyday needs, right? A swimming pool, yes, you can do a swimming pool. Now, things to think about when it comes to swimming pools are a couple things. It's standing water, so do you have a swimming pool full of fresh water? Because if you have a swimming pool full of fresh water, you have to think about insects. You got to think about mosquitoes laying larvae in there. You got to think about leaves and other debris getting in there and sitting and festering. Other animals, birds. You got to think about all these things that could pollute that water. Is your swimming pool treated? Did you treat it with pool shock? Personally, I don't want to drink water treated with pool shock, right? So these are all things to consider. Just because you have a pool of hundreds and hundreds of gallons of water doesn't necessarily mean that that's going to be the best water adaptation for what your needs are going to be, right? So keep that in consideration, right? I'm just keeping things real with you, okay? So something to think about. Another thing I would have you consider: how to make the water potable, right? Sure, can you go out there with a pot and pan or a bucket, pour it in a big colander or a deep pot and boil it? Yes, and then you can drink it, do whatever. That takes time. It takes a lot of energy. I highly consider maybe already having some kind of filtration systems in place. You have the LifeStraw, you have the Sawyers. I like the Sawyers; they're great. You have the Berkeys, right? So investing in some kind of real-time filtration that you can use is going to be important as well, because again, realistically speaking, 99.9% of the time, unless we're talking about a raw situation, the water is going to come back on. Bad case scenarios, it might be out for a week. But if you've already planned for that 1 month scenario, which again, it's possible in the suburbs, it takes a lot of time, a lot of resources and energy, but it is possible to get to that level of preparedness. It's really going to set you up to make sure that you can live at least comfortably until the resources and the infrastructure does come back on. Okay. Other considerations to note when it comes to water. Okay. Really understand and set forth infrastructure, kind of talking what I talked about already, that's going to suit your needs, right? You're not going to be able to, running your dishwasher, probably not the best way to wash your dishes. Maybe not the most efficient way. Your laundry, right? Using your washer for clothes, probably not the best, most efficient way of using your water, right? Taking long showers, all these things, probably not the best use of that. So think about and plan for, what are you going to do? How are you going to make that work? Okay. Again, things to think about. And so in a scenario where you are in the suburbs, I think the number one thing that you should think about is, what's the game plan? Okay. Again, this is not going to be a long-term solution. Don't expect to be able to grow crops. Don't expect to be able to have a lot of livestock on limited water supplies like that. It is not a long-term solution. It is simply a Band-Aid in the hope and attempt that one of two things happen. The infrastructure comes back on, and the water from the tap starts again, or you have your exit strategy. So within those confines, I highly encourage you, before you purchase anything, figure out what it is you're going to do first. Just being honest with you. Then I would really start thinking about the infrastructure standpoint of it. How am I going to wash clothes? How am I going to take showers? How am I going to utilize this water appropriately? Because again, you can have a pool full of water, but if you're just planning on using the pot method, there are better ways to do it. There are better ways to do it. So think about the infrastructure. It could be something as simple as a bucket with a submersible shower pump. Those are great. Or it could be something as, you have those shower bags that you can use, you can fill with water. Figure out what the game plan is for your infrastructure needs and purposes. Okay. And if you're wondering, and then once you get to that point where, you have the filtration to make potable water, you have the infrastructure you're going to use, then I would say start thinking about how much water you're going to need to store. And it's pretty simple. It's pretty simple to get a good idea. Most people have a water bill, right? Take that bill. How much water do you use in a month? Okay, perfect. This is how much water you're going to use that you typically use in a month. How are you going to shape that down to the plan that you've already set? How are you going to make that work? So those are also things to consider. And one last thing that I think is super important to have. I have one. You can go to Home Depot and you can buy one of those pond pumps. Fucking outstanding, because you can get those pond pumps that can pump up to 90 gallons an hour. That's pretty good, especially if you do find that you need to do a resupply or you have the ability. So let's just say that there is a situation like we saw with Hurricane Katrina where there are still fuel available. You can still buy gasoline. The natural disaster has happened. It has occurred. You have a truck. You have IBC tow. You can put the IBC tow empty on the truck, on the trailer, but there's no electricity. So you're focusing on, what you can produce yourself. Well, if you could drive that IBC tow to a place where you can find potable water or find a clean stream or something like that, you can put that pond pump that costs $30 to $40. You can put it in the water source and you can start filling that bad boy up. You can bring it back and you can filter and you can use the already in place water infrastructure that you have, right? And that's why it's so important to do it in that way. And that's why I recommend, if you're going to do it, you do it in that way. But I do have a really nice pond pump for that purpose. If that purpose arises, it's pretty useful, being able to pump large amounts of water without breaking the bank necessarily. So keep that in mind. Lastly, I want to address real quick about Weld Kits. Should I start digging my backyard and putting a big container in there? I'm not going to tell you what to do. That's really on you. I would be very careful. I'd be very careful with that. Yes, if you plan on staying there forever and this is your forever home and you're never leaving and you are planning for that 1 month, solid 1 month, and you want to make sure that infrastructure is in place and you're going to pull the permits and you're going to do everything by the book and you have the resources to do it, sure, you can do that. But I can see that being more of a headache than it is net positive. Because if we're being honest with ourselves, again, the truth is, and again, nobody likes to hear this because, people in the preparedness community like to ingest massive amounts of fear porn. But the truth of the matter is, most people that go through these natural catastrophes, they still survive. They still live, right? They still make it. This idea without rule of law shits the fan. It's a fantasy. Most likely will never happen, right? But with that being said, you have to decide what you're preparing for. And again, most people survive natural disasters. Most people survived Hurricane Katrina. Most people survive. Insert any crazy historic precedents that you can think of. Most people survived it. So, and they weren't prepared. So again, figure out what the game plan is. But yes, realistically, 99.9% of people that live in the suburbs are going to survive anyway. If you want to be prepared and you want to not have to deal with, you don't want to have to deal with a bunch of controversy, and you don't want to deal with the issues that arise from being unprepared and you want to live comfortably, yeah, I would say that, there are ways to store a week, 2 weeks, a month worth of water. Use it in a way that's going to make your life comfortable until that infrastructure comes back online and you can go back to living life normally. And again, I would focus on infrastructure. I focus on a plan. What are you going to do? Stay and play, bug out, figure out a plan, start working on infrastructure, start working on the water filtration portions of it, then address the water storage proponents of it, and think about getting a pump. That's what I have for you guys. That's my sound advice in a nutshell. So yeah, I think the Sawyers are great. The Lifestyles are good. The Berkeys are outstanding, and there's a lot of other similar name brand type equipment out there that you can use for those purposes. But again, get your infrastructure down, because you can do something as nice and as resilient as having having an off-grid shower built in your backyard, all that cool stuff, to something as simple as a 5-gallon bucket with a submersible $15 shower pump, or a $10 shower bag that you can hang, or IBC tote, a couple IBC totes filled with water that have a pump on it. So again, you can be as off-grid, fancy, technological with it as you want, or you can be as simple and basic, but you can still meet those comfort needs. So hope this was helpful for you guys. If you have any questions, leave in the comment section below. I always love answering your questions, and I love the little community that we have here. So I hope you guys have a good one as always, guys. Long live the Republic.